this on? Hello? Hold on, let me fix the camera. Can't see. Hey, Mom, are we streaming? Check the internet, Mom. I think we're live streaming around the world and around the web. Bitcoin Live Productions. Live stream Sunday. Thank you to the entire family. Bitcoin Live Network. And a banger of a show this morning on the network. Douglas, 3D Changing Perspectives, talking about wallets and how you can actually live off crypto. Some great stuff. And again, if you missed it, it's all right there on the YouTube channel. And the link, I think, is here, there, where executive producer Nick Diamond will throw the link up. We got a lot to get to today. We have a very special guest joining us, Rob McNealy. The guy's an OG in the space. He's been working on crypto, blockchain, stable coins, if you want to call them that, and alternative payment rails. We will talk to the man himself. But before we do that, let's make it official, Mr. Nick Diamond. Can we roll the official big Beyond the Block show open? Because it makes me feel like we're like on CNBC or like Fox Business when. Official, like with a whistle. Hey, David Ingalls over at Bloomberg. Do you guys have fancy graphics like that you use? Charles Payne at Fox Business. What's up, buddy? You got graphics like that? Anyways, shout out again, executive producer Nick Diamond and the Bitcoin Live family of shows. We will have Rob McNealy joining us here shortly. Again, tweet it out. Let folks know. Live stream Sunday. It's going on around the world and around the web, Beyond the Block. Let's cover some of the biggest stories that were trending this week in the space. Lots to get to, lots to cover. We'll hit it really quick, really fast, and then we'll get into it with our special guest, Rob McNealy. Let's cover the headlines for the week. Some of the things that have popped out here on the crypto Twitter space. So let's roll some headlines. This is like better than CNBC. Like, oh my gosh, how do we get all the fancy graphics and stuff? Gosh, Nick Diamond, you're great. Love him. Give him a follow. All right, in the news, one thing popping out already: 1,200 German banks are now going to be offering Bitcoin to retail customers. This obviously coming on the heels of everything surrounding UBS and Credit Suisse. And again, there's the link right there. You can see for yourself. Over 1,200 German banks going to be offering it to retail noobs like you and I. If that's not bullish, I don't know. And what's going to happen Monday with the fallout from Deutsche Bank? Again, that remains to be seen. Also trending around the world and around the web in the headlines, Samson Mow, CEO from Jan3, also from Blockstream, Bitcoin guy, along with the Prince of Serbia, Prince Philip, look to be onboarding Costa Rica as the next nation adopting Bitcoin. Sam and Prince Philip down there talking with both parties of the Costa Rican government. And there was a video, or a photo, I should say, pardon me, that was tweeted out of somebody in Costa Rica in their Congress where there's actually a Bitcoin ATM. And they said, hey, look, I bought Bitcoin in Congress in Costa Rica. So, and again, I want to give a shout out to one of our former guests who was on here, a colleague of mine from Quantum Economics, Gerald Vata, the crypto oracle. The guy makes so many calls. He's like T-Mobile. The dude is accurate AF. And he said it was back in April, if I'm not mistaken. If Nick, you can find his tweet. If not, but I would encourage you follow Gerald Vata. He called it. He said Costa Rica will be the next. And he said this like in April of 2022. Like, I don't know who else was like had Costa Rica on their bingo card. But again, why you should follow Quantum Economics, Gerald Vata, the crypto oracle, give him some love. Also, in the headlines, this one was kind of crazy. I don't know how they plan on doing this, but good luck. Austria says that they're going to arrest Putin on site if he should ever visit the country. Well, guess Putin's not making any trips to Austria, is he? And finally, one of the biggest stories that we've all kind of seen on the crypto Twitter is the Satoshi skull. the fallout from this. Von Wong, is that right? Do we get his name right? Von Wang, Vera Wang? I don't know. But apparently he's a pretty respected artist. He's been doing these kinds of pieces for a long time. And the story was that he says that he was approached by Greenpeace to do this to help raise awareness and wanting to change the block size and how, Bitcoin is run from proof of work to proof of stake. Well, it turns out that this Greenpeace project was funded by Chris Larson and the owners of XRP. So it's got a lot of folks hopped up and talking back and forth. And if you've been following any of it online, you can see some of the Bitcoin community very open, like wanting to help love and encourage and correct and say, hey, and then other folks are just being trolls and acting like idiots. A piece of good news here in the headline world. Do Kwon arrested and taken into custody, facing extradition. That was a welcome sight. I think a lot of us applaud and we're excited to see. Now we're just waiting for SBF. And I'm just throwing this in here really quick, so I don't know if Nick can do this, but if you saw the video going around, Haley Lennon, crypto Twitter superstar, super legal eagle in the crypto world, she shared the video, and this was Do Kwon, Martin Shkreli, SBF. They're all on this chat, like a Zoom call, and Martin's like, well, prison's not that bad. I mean, you get 3 hots and a cot, basically. And if you go back looking at it in hindsight now, SBF's face, that really should become a meme. Anyways, all right, that is just some of what was trending in the past week. And if you want the best, seriously, the best when it comes to crypto news, I would encourage you follow our friend and colleague, the Crypto Curator. He does 2 shows here on the Bitcoin Live family of networks. He does Bitcoin is Freedom and Bitcoin is Politics. They alternate every Thursday. And again, I love Paul McNealy. The guy is one of the best. He curates the news, and you're always going to get facts, not FUD. All right, with that, we should probably transition into our special guest, Rob McNealy. I want to before we get into Rob, there's Rob. I did my research here, and everybody's using AI. We all use Chat GPT, and I thought, well, let's ask Chat GPT to help us write Rob's bio and welcome Rob. So here's what Chat GPT has to say about our special guest, Rob McNealy, today, and I think it's pretty accurate.
Rob McNealy is the founder and CEO of TUSC, a blockchain-based payment system designed for the legal cannabis industry. In this capacity, he has gained significant experience and knowledge in the practical applications of blockchain technology, including its use in creating secure and efficient payment systems. Additionally, he has appeared as a guest on several podcasts and webinars where he has discussed blockchain technology and its potential applications. However, it is worth noting that the field of cryptocurrency and blockchain technology is constantly evolving and expanding, and expertise in this field can be quite specialized. So while Rob McNealy may not be a recognized expert in all aspects of the field, he does have a certain level of expertise and knowledge in the area of blockchain technology and its applications.
Yes, he has an expertise. You heard that. You're an expert, dude. Welcome. Thank you for making time to join us today.
Well, thank you. And I'm real excited to be here. And, being a crypto expert and, 50 cents doesn't buy you a cup of coffee. So it is what it is. But
no.
But that's interesting. I think it's got a couple points that are a little off, but
address those really quick.
But ChatGPT, depending on what version you're using, the data cutoff was a couple of years ago. So who knows, what it's accessing to, formulate that summary.
What would you like to amend to the ChatGPT bio? Because I know that there are some things that you're doing. It's a little bit different.
So one, TUSC isn't a company, so I'm not a CEO of it. So it's a decentralized project. I'm one of the co-founders of it, but it's not a company, corporate entity like that. So that's not accurate. And then we are not focused on any one particular industry like cannabis, though just like any public blockchain crypto, we could be used for any industry. So those would be the only nuances I would change to that, but it's pretty accurate, I guess.
Yeah, Chat GPT and AI. Let me ask you this. I guess what we've talked a few times on the past on crypto Twitter and spaces and whatnot. And I love engaging with you. And I think the thing that really why I wanted to get your input and feedback is when it comes to the topic of like Bitcoin maxis. I know that like you're not very pro Bitcoin maxis. You're kind of like you call them out, and I think that's fair to a point that folks should be called out and accountable. Let me just start with that, addressing the elephant as we talk about TUSC. What is the biggest issue or pushback that you have, I guess I would say, with the toxic maximalisms? Or can you even say that there are good Bitcoin maxis and bad Bitcoin? Would you even say that they're just all toxic?
I don't throw anybody in one basket, but if there's a stereotype about Bitcoin maximalists that they're just really hostile and obnoxious, and they're really, I mean, there's, excuse me, there's a lot of Bitcoin maxis that say if you're in any crypto project that's not Bitcoin, they'll call you a charlatan or a scam, regardless of the fundamentals or the truth or the merits of it. And so I think that's just obnoxious. And I don't think being obnoxious and arrogant is helpful to the space, especially for new people coming in. And I'm not going to say, by the way, I I'm a huge Bitcoin guy, so I know
you
crypto,
are. I know you are.
And and I'm one of those guys that Bitcoin helped you pay for my down payment on my house last summer. So I am still a big guy in Bitcoin. I love Bitcoin. I'm not anti-Bitcoin. I just don't believe that it's like the Highlander. There can be only one, and I think ultimately Bitcoin has some narrative problems. They went from peer-to-peer electronic cash to store value. The problem is Bitcoin's a great digital asset. The way it currently is, it's not good for transactional money purposes. And I think there's other cryptos that can fill that niche. But I think I'm not anti-Bitcoin whatsoever. I just think that, well, I got one more point I'd like to make on Bitcoin in general, right? Is that I don't want there to be one crypto that runs the planet. Just like I don't want there to be a petrodollar running the planet. If you want, I think that what's better than one decentralized crypto network out there is dozens or hundreds of decentralized crypto networks out there. And look at it this way: if you get the entire world on one digital system for payments, you're going to have every terrorist and every state actor trying to take it down. And do I believe that any network can never be taken down? No, that's nonsense. And so I would rather we have redundant cryptocurrency systems and networks out there that interrelate, that interswap between one another, rather than just one big one. I think that's actually creates one central point of failure. And we're seeing right now, the fiat equivalent was, the petrodollar. But if you look at it, there's over 100 fiat currencies in the world. And then they're kind of under this umbrella of the hegemony of, the US dollar. And most of us would say that's a bad thing because you have these central banks that kind of control that. I'd rather you have multiple redundant decentralized networks out there interswapping between one another, because I think long term that's safer.
When it comes to I guess for a novice like myself and folks who are kind of coming into the space, it would seem like when you talk about one point of failure, but doesn't the whole process of decentralization make that very hard? Like a 51% takeover of the Bitcoin network make it very hard and almost cost prohibitive because of the amount of energy and cost that it would take to do that? Or has there been changes made where it's easier to do that now?
Well, I'm not. Well, besides there being Bitcoin maximalists, there's also proof of work maximalists, and I'm not a proof of work maximalist either. And I think that if a maxi has this kind of weird position, right? They're saying the best car can be a Ford, and it's got to be a Model A, and there can be no improvement on that Model A. That's what a maxi says. There can only be a Ford Model A is the only best thing in the world that will ever be. It's perfect. Now, I would argue if you want to drive cross country, a Model A Ford is not what you're going to want to drive.
Probably not.
And because there's been a lot of innovations beyond that. So whenever you've closed the door on innovation because you have a religious or cult-like zeal about something, I think that gets dangerous and short-sighted. And ultimately, don't ever say it can't happen. It's like, what happens when we all know when we've heard about the periphery of quantum computing and things like that, right? So that makes a lot of that proof of work cost to do a 51% attack go down dramatically. And who's going to get a quantum computer first? It's going to be state actors.
I was going to say Jamie
probably
Dimon. That was my guess. I was going to go with Jamie Dimon.
Maybe I would say intelligence agencies and governments are going to get those quantum computers first.
Yeah.
And if they crack SHA 256, they're probably not going to make it public when they do it.
Right.
And so I understand enough about technology that don't say never, right? And if you're looking at building crypto as money, you have to think into the future decades, if not centuries, if you want that to be a long-lasting thing. So if you're telling me in the next 20 years, there won't be multiple ways or computer technology innovations that might break the current encryption, for instance, or make it so you can make, you don't have to go to China to get ant miners, but someone can make an ASIC in their garage with some new technology. I don't know what that is. I don't know if it's possible.
I think Gerald Votz is working on that.
Maybe. But what happens in 20 years if someone does that? Now the cost to launch those attacks now become very inexpensive.
Right. Goes
and
down.
So that's what I'm saying is, and I mean, I'm not a proof of work maxi either. I say, look at what works, and the best crypto is the crypto that's being used. Let's go there. And I think that there's a lot of room for improvement with the way Bitcoin is right now if they want it to be used as transactional money.
Okay, what would they do right there? Let me just tell you, what are some of those improvements that you would like to see? I mean, would you give me a rundown of a BIP? If I'm taking notes for a BIP, what would you do?
More programmatic ability, shorter block times, bigger blocks. And I would start off with consistent transaction costs. So, but these are things we built with TUSC. So we built it the way we thought it would be best. So for instance, to, think of it just in, everyday use. So you don't know how much something's going to cost to transact on. Well, that's a huge barrier to entry for business because you can't project your expenses going forward. So that makes adopting these things kind of a challenge. If you think about, if you want to make a payment system, you probably need to think of it in terms of what does a business want to, we know that most credit cards are going to be between 3 and 7%. A business knows that and they can shop around. But with Bitcoin, depending on the demand and the mempool congestion, and I'm not picking at Bitcoin. I'm just saying is
no.
If you can't look at something and say, okay, and by the way, my background is with cryptos. I don't spend my time hanging out in the crypto world. I'm in industry. I'm talking to actual retailers. I'm trying to persuade to look at crypto as a solution. And so I actually talk to retailers and by the way, it's like, it's the stable coins. Right? You hear about these objections to stable coins. The fact is the objection to adopting cryptocurrency, the biggest objection that people lead with is not the volatility. And so I think that's where you.
What would it be? What are you hearing? What is the feedback?
It's suspicion. It's scams. That's probably the number one thing, and the taxes. Believe it or not, every transaction with crypto, if you're a retailer and you want to accept crypto, every single time you move that money, the accounting of that, and
that's got to change big time.
Well, it's not going to change the United States because they don't want it to at this point. But the thing is, the only people that I know that even bring that up as an issue are people like me that are talking to retailers. But most Bitcoin people don't talk to retailers. And I think the biggest problem with adoption with Bitcoin and crypto in general is that people view it as a digital asset because the store of value narrative worked really well. Right. And so what's happening is no one's going to sell Amazon.com stock to go buy gas and groceries because it would be silly to do that. And so I think because they've really pushed the store of value narrative so much for, at least 5-6 years now, people see it as a digital stock. They see it as a 401k. And I don't believe that most people see it as money.
Part of that narrative has been established because we really didn't have the on-ramps or the infrastructure built to have it used as a currency, like as it was, if I remember the peer white paper, I think it said peer-to-peer electronic cash, right? Didn't say store of value in the white paper, did it? I mean,
no, it's not listed.
Yeah, it says peer-to-peer. I got the white paper.
But here's the thing, right? Like if you look at the number of payment gateways, the number of wallets, the number of exchanges, Bitcoin is the number one for all rails, for all infrastructure of any crypto. It's got the most. Right. There's so many options. You got BTC Pay Server, which is amazing. Lightning, if I don't think is amazing. But I mean, you have all these options out there, but still people don't use Bitcoin to buy stuff, goods and services. They just don't. Even though if you're going to adopt crypto for something, Bitcoin is the most, what's the word, most proliferated crypto out there. And still people don't use it for its intended purpose. They use it as an investment, as do I. I use it as an investment, but I would never sell my Bitcoin to go buy stuff at Costco.
Yeah,
I think it's silly. It'd be like me selling
Exactly.
401k stuff. It'd be selling mutual funds to go buy, coffee at Starbucks. It makes no sense to me. I bought, so I thought it was interesting. I had to buy some Bitcoin the other day for something I'm working on, and I bought it, and then I moved it a week later, and a week later it was worth $200 more than I bought it for. It was a small amount, but it's like, why would I sell that asset that has so much potential upside? Why would I sell it to buy gas and groceries? And it doesn't make any sense. And I think ultimately that's one of the main reasons Bitcoin has not been mass adopted. And I think you also, because it hasn't been mass marketed, but those are the two reasons I think that Bitcoin is not going to be used as money, a day-to-day transactional currency. I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's become an amazing digital asset as an investment. In fact, I think it's the safest crypto out there to invest in. But that's my own opinion, and Maxie's disagree with that opinion.
Well, I would agree with you that it is the safest crypto to invest in, period. And in light of everything that's happened, and I've been around here since 2017, and I am no expert by any means, but I've just been very
just as
fortunate.
much of an expert as I am.
Well, no, you're actually building, and I'm over here speculating and trolling and shit posting. There's a big difference between what folks like you do and clowns like me do. So let's be honest about that, Rob.
But you've been here long enough. You have a good gauge of the system. You have a good gauge of it. But I will say another thing. It's like, here's a good point. You use the word invest in. Okay. When you think of money, do you think of investing in dollars or Deutschmarks or euros? No. I mean, there's those weird Forex scammer traders that talk about it, but the reality is most people don't invest in currencies. They use currencies. They don't invest in them. And I think that's the mindset. I would never think of using Bitcoin to buy something unless it was like a house or a car or something, some major other asset.
What I'm excited about is the potential where let's say if I had any Bitcoin, then I would be able to take that. You were on that same boat, right? Yeah, I think we were both on that. That was the SS good times. But if I had any Bitcoin of a substantial amount, then what I would waiting for is the ability to then leverage that, like my house or my mortgage, and then take something out against that. And I think that's what we kind of saw initially with Celsius and some of these DeFi projects, but there was obviously a lot of chicanery and bullshittery going on there. But I think hopefully, my fingers are crossed, that somebody like Fidelity or when these big 4 major institutions come in and they cuss it, then they'll eventually it's going to be where they will give you a loan against that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I come back to not your coins, not your
Well, exactly.
Something.
Well, but I think Sovereign does this though. Sovereign DeFi, if I'm not mistaken, will do this. They actually let you hold the keys, and then you get a loan back. Sovereign DeFi.
I don't even know how that would work because if you own the keys, how does the collateralization work if they need to liquidate?
Yeah, I don't know. Hey, you know what, Nick? Let's schedule Sovereign DeFi and get them in here. We talked to them once, like Yago. Yago's the guy, right? Yeah, Yago. We'll get Yago in here. He'll unpack that sometime.
So my wife and I'm very conservative in how I invest.
That's probably a good way to go.
And my wife and I do pretty well in our day jobs. I don't need crypto, right? I don't make any money from TUSC. I've never made money from TUSC. We never sold TUSC. We never even did an ICO. We never took anybody's money for TUSC. It was launched via faucets for free, no strings attached 5 years ago. So understand, you can't scam people when you don't take their money and you don't promise them anything. So let's start there. So I always like to point that out for the Maxies that are listening that are seething that I'm, in the crypto project, not. But I went through this process last June. My wife and I, we sold our house 2 years ago, did really well. And then we rented for a little while. Then we bought another house last summer before the market started, jumping up those little interest rates. And we used Bitcoin. We sold Bitcoin for part of our down payment. And it was a fascinating process because to us, we've done well. Bitcoin was doing okay. And so going through that process is interesting. And we ran down a lot of rabbit holes because you wouldn't believe the number of people who said, why waste the tax? Just take out a loan against your Bitcoin. And, one of the top people that told me that lost $35,000 on Celsius and Luna because I looked it up. And it was like all these. And here's the thing. I looked at a couple different platforms. And one of them was the Gemini Give platform that is, melted down. One of them Celsius. And it's funny because I did a calculation on risk because it was long-term cap gains for us because we held the big, we're just holders. Like I don't trade or anything.
Yeah. You're like,
and so that's 15%. Long-term cap gains for us is, it's 15% or 20%, but 15% for us at the time for that year. And I'm like, okay, but these people are going to basically charge us 7% to take that, loan out or whatever it was. And I'm like, so ultimately taking out a loan against my crypto will save me like 8%, but I have to put up like, 1.5 or 2x my crypto to get the loan out. So what I'm doing is I'm not going to go into numbers, but it would have been a significant amount of money to put a whole lot of crypto to save a couple $1,000s in tax or whatever it was.
Okay. Well, see, this is good to know.
And so we did a risk assessment. Okay. So I could lose. So if I just sell my crypto on short-term cap or long-term cap gains, I'm going to pay 15% tax. Right. But if I put up twice as much crypto or whatever, 1.5 or 2x, they had different, amounts for collateral. Right. But I have to now put up twice as much risk to save 8%. And I'm like, but I could get everything liquidated for that 8%. And my wife and I, who are very conservative, I'm like, I don't see the upside to taking that risk of that just for 8% to lose twice my money or whatever it's going to be. And so we decided to not use any of those platforms. And it was very fortuitous that we're cowards and we're chickens. And I'm like, because I'm risk adverse. But we read the paperwork. And we actually read the fine print on liquidations. And I'm like, there's no way liquidating twice the amount of money and putting at risk to save a couple percentage points in tax. It made no sense to me. And the people that were telling me, you got to just, don't ever pay the government, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you guys don't have any concept of risk management. And in crypto, how many times have we seen like exchanges blow up? I'm talking even before like this last fall, right?
You're talking like Mt. Gox.
Dude, they all blow up. We've had there's so many small exchanges that have been blowing up that you never hear about.
Quadriga.
And so
go on.
Altilli, what's the one what was the one down? There was another one we were on that was another Asian Chinese one, and then there was the one down in New Zealand that went down, and
they're all like bit smack and bit pop and bit hit, and geez, people, come on, I can't keep track.
So when you I think what happens with a lot of crypto people is they're really shitty at risk assessment. Honestly, they're just they don't understand risk analysis.
Right.
And so since I actually read the paperwork, I'm not saying I'm the best, but I'm a wuss, right? I work really hard for my money. Like I've never had anything given to me. So, and for a down payment on a house, it was a significant amount of our resources that was tied up in Bitcoin. And we just said we're going to pay the tax because it's not worth liquidating and losing a bunch more.
Do you think, I'm sorry, just on that whole thing though, do you think, or do you foresee perhaps the United States doing something like a lot of these countries in Europe? I think Germany and France are doing this, where now if you hold your Bitcoin for say a year, you don't have to pay cap gains on it. And you see like what Bukele's even doing now in El Salvador. He came out this week and saying, no income tax, no taxes on anything that's related to technology or like even crypto. What would it take for the U.S. to adopt something like that? Or even just because that would even help folks like you and I avoiding that cap gains.
I don't see that ever happening in the United States. I think the United States, the politicians are completely captured by the corporate sector, the finance sector, and their main job, they have twofold main job: protect the hegemony of the U.S. dollar, the petrodollar, and protect the banks at the expense of taxpayers. That's what the U.S. government politicians do, all of them. And so understand that crypto rising means the U.S. dollar is failing. Ultimately, we're losing. The government's losing power, and the banks are losing power. And so so they're going to fight crypto if they don't compromise it. So I think when you look at these captured entities, they have two strategies, right? And you see on one hand, the banks want to get carve outs to, like, Fidelity and the Schwabs and the NASDAQs in the world. They either want to control it or they want to eliminate it. Yeah. And I think what you're seeing is they've made it very difficult to be legally compliant as an exchange or a crypto in the United States. And I think ultimately, to some point, they see there's a big market here. So I think they're going to push. I think they're never going to do anything that's good for the market. They're going to do what's good to pay off the people that put them in office.
Sure. So that kind of leads us into the whole like banking crisis, and this has been going on, and obviously an Operation Choke Point to kind of like what you've been talking about, and lots of folks are. So does that then lead us into the whole era of CBDCs? And is that kind of what we see happening? Is it we're getting all these regional banks, folks are exiting, bringing in their money to these bigger banks. Eventually that'll get swapped out into CBDCs. And is this kind of where you see things headed with this banking crisis? Is this really to usher in CBDCs?
So I'm not a conspiracy theorist when it comes to CBDCs, like a lot of people.
Oh, I am. I'm all over. Woo!
Well, no, and also I'll tell you why. Is that CBDCs aren't crypto, right? And the reality is, if you're concerned about privacy, I assume you don't use debit cards or credit cards whatsoever, ever. You don't use PayPal, you don't use Square, Cash App, Stripe, any of those things. I'm assuming if you are concerned about a CBDC, you pay everything in absolute cash. Is that correct?
Actually, I use seashells. So,
right. And salt, right?
Yeah.
So the reality is, let's throw the privacy argument out, right? Because the reality is you can have your credit card shut off, your bank account frozen anytime right now. And most white people in this country use their debit card for absolutely everything. So let's start there. That's human behavior right now. We already are completely tracked. Your cell phone tracks you everywhere you go. So the people I know that are really paranoid don't have social media accounts. They don't use a smartphone and they don't use debit card or credit cards. So if you are living a normal life, and I know you're on social media, then let's start off that fear is probably unfounded, because you already have a huge privacy.
You've already put it out there.
You've already put it out there. But so here's the thing that I'm concerned about. One, I believe the US dollar will fail. We're $31 trillion in overt debt, and probably, depending on who you talk to, quadrillions of dollars in unfunded debts, right? The dollar's going to fail. I don't know when. I don't know if it's going to be this year. I thought it would have been 10 years ago. I thought the dollar was going to fail, but they keep kicking that can and keep making it work. But I think the dollar is going to fail. And to think that they're not going to have an alternative in place when that dollar fails is naive. And so they're going to call it a CBDC. It's going to be a digital currency because it's just cheaper to roll it out. Do I think they're intentionally bringing down the system? No, because the system's been fucked up for a long time. So understand, the system already has been broken and going down this kick the can mode, for this path for so long. I think ultimately they're going to have something in play. But I think the big concern to me is not necessarily the privacy implications about a CBDC, because we already have privacy is already killed and out the window now with the current system. The current system, if you want to look, what I'm worried about is the haircut that's going to happen to everybody when they revalue the money. And so the good example is, I lived in Europe for a while when I was younger. And for instance, when Ireland went into the EU and then later adopted the euro, it seemed to go from overnight. A pint of Guinness went from £2 to £4 as soon as the euro came in, right? It's just all of a sudden everything got revalued into that new currency. And I think the reality is, when they bring in the CBDC or whatever the next digital dollar nonsense is, it's just they're going to revalue everybody, and we're going to have a national haircut. And that's the problem. And to me, no one's talking about that. That's what I think. To me, that's the concern we should have about a CBDC.
And I think this goes back to what we were talking about. Even I wrote in an op-ed that almost like bank bail-ins, like what we saw in Cyprus and Greece and everything like that. The depositor's money, you have dollars. Well, guess what? All those dollars are gone. We've replaced it now with the CBDC. And here's what I think was it oh gosh, her name is it not? Oh god, I'm spacing on her name on Twitter. Please forgive me, but she came up with a really great theory that not only when they swap it out, they're going to give you a little bit more to make you feel even better about that. Like, because it's a pre-mined shitcoin, they can just up. So you know what? When they swap it out, well, we're going to give you got $100, we'll give you 125.
Sure, and
I feel better now.
Well, I mean, it's like they already got it. It's already FedNow, right? I mean, FedNow, and think about it. They're now
coming out in June, July, right?
They're now the Federal Reserve competing with transaction stuff like Visa and MasterCard. That's pretty significant, right? So the Fed's just going to kind of like swoop in and take over payments. And how they're going to roll it out? They're just, I mean, you look at it like this though. Like if you're already dependent on government, right? Whether it's, think of food stamps, right? We've been on EBT cards. The government knows exactly what you're eating. If you're on food stamps, look at Section 8 housing. You know, you get those housing vouchers. Whether you're on Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, all that stuff's just going to be flushed straight through this new digital dollar. So assume it will happen. But again, it doesn't even matter if it's a conspiracy. It's an inevitability. They're crashing the dollar.
They are.
And so, and you think the government's just going to go away? Well, all right, we killed the dollar. All the politicians are going to go home, and Washington D.C. will just be a big vacuum, and although the Federal Reserve will just shut down peacefully, and there'll be a transition of power, and we'll all be in utopia. No, that's not how it's worked. They've already figured out. They know they got a certain amount of time. Well, they can, launder their things into valuable assets with, worthless dollars or declining value dollars. And
that's a good way to put it.
And they know there will be a haircut when the dollar finally does crash. And there's probably a dozen different triggers can make it happen, right? We don't know what's going to happen with global war. We don't know what's going to happen with continued bank failures. But it's obvious you're not going to let any banks fail, which will only it'll kick the can a little longer, but it's just going to continue to erode public confidence and international confidence in the dollar. At the same time, you have the BRICS nations,
he's speaking my love language, man.
And so my concern is the haircut. And if you're going to talk about CBDCs, talk about what's likely going to happen. There's going to be a giant haircut. And so having your wealth outside of the dollar system during that transition is going to be critical. So there's an opportunity here. But I also think that opportunity is going to be on the back of a lot of suffering for a lot of millions of people.
Yeah, I agree. I think you've been reading my op-ed pieces there on Medium, because that's a lot of what we've been talking about. And it is scary. I was talking to my wife about this, that like folks like you and I who watch this, or maybe are coming into this, are probably a little bit more prepared, right? So, but what scares me is folks like family members, friends, relatives that are just watching, Vanderpump Rules and MSNBC, Lester Holt. They don't know what's coming. And you're right, Rob, there's going to be a lot of pain, and it's not going to be all that great for those folks. And it's going to be hard. So for us who have kind of prepared, like, wow, I feel like I'm happy because I'm prepared, but I feel bad because other people aren't.
Well, I think if anybody who's concerned about CBDCs, right? I mean, it's funny because this is where I get annoyed with Bitcoin maximalists. A lot of these guys are cheering it. They're cheering collapse of the dollar. They want the dollar to collapse. But these retards, and they're retards, they don't understand how much suffering is going to happen to most Americans when that dollar fails.
Yeah.
Right. Because they're hoping Bitcoin will be the Highlander. There can only be one, and Bitcoin will be the thing. And I'm going to be a rich warlord or some bullshit. And these guys, I'm like, get off your fat ass. Okay, that's nonsense. And you know what? I want to be wealthy just like the next guy. I don't want to suffer. But I don't want to be rich because other people are suffering. That doesn't. That's already
the paradigm we've been living in, man, for the beginning of time.
But if you listen, I mean, I go on Clubhouse, I listen to these Bitcoin maxi rooms, I hear what they say, and this is the kind of nonsense they actually are cheerleading. And understand when the dollar collapse might be in a year, might be in 10 years. I don't know when that will happen, but I assume it could be at this rate. Yeah. But ultimately, there's going to be so many people suffering. I'm talking people are going to lose everything. It's going to be like Great Depression Dust Bowl. Yeah. And if you want to understand like what mild currency failures look like, I mean, you can look at, Zimbabwe, current modern stuff. Like you can look in Zimbabwe and Argentina and Venezuela. Venezuela, they're like chasing down like flamingos and beating them to death with rocks because they got no food, right? I mean, and the average American can't fathom that. But that's the kind of stuff that you happen during this transition of a currency failure. I think what's going to end up happening though is the U.S. government's going to have whatever this new CBD, DC FedNow combo thing. They're already laying the groundwork, so they're just going to transition to it. I think probably smoothly. And so I think it's going to be, and ultimately, it's going to happen, right? The question is, what do we do about it? What alternatives are we giving, and what foundations are we laying now?
Exactly.
I think we need to get other cryptos. And look, if Bitcoin and Lightning got used every day for currency, I'd be all on it. No doubt in my mind, because I believe we need to have alternatives to government issued currencies out there in the market that are not stable coins, that are market driven value wise. And I hope that TUSC might be part of that. If Bitcoin, I hope it's part of that. But we need to get people using them for buying and selling goods and services. That is still the killer app. It is the number one killer reason that we should be using crypto is to come up with alternatives to government issued currency and let the market decide. You got to remember, if there's a currency collapse and there isn't some FedNow system already ready to pick up the pieces, you don't know what's going to be currency. People figure currency out really quick. In prison, it's ramen noodles and cigarettes and drugs, right? I mean, but there's a huge hard economy inside of prisons all over the country. People will find things to use as currency. You don't have to be, it's not that complicated. People will figure out what has value and liquidity, and they will work with what they got. I'm just hoping that with like TUSC, we start getting people using it. We've always been focused on getting people to try to use it. That's been our main focus.
Well, let's talk about TUSC really quick. What have you been working on? Where's the roadmap at right now? And I know that ChatGPT was a little off there about the marijuana industry. Maybe you started there, but walk us through where you're at now, the roadmap, and who are some of the folks that you are working with at TUSC?
So I, as an individual, have been, because I had a business in the gun industry. We saw that there was a niche need in the gun industry because of the real Operation Choke Point during, from 2012 and under the Obama administration. We started just talking to people in the gun industry about, looking at crypto, our crypto specifically. And I can tell you, we are getting really close to people showing interest in it. But about a year ago, we found that because they can't use credit cards, but so much. But they do have options there's not many options in the gun industry right now for payments, but they do still have some providers of, credit card offs, merchant services and things. So we kind of kept running into a wall that the industry is just very suspicious. I've had two different executives from billion-dollar companies say, get on Coinbase and we'll accept you. Well, you know how hard it is to get a crypto on Coinbase, especially if you're not pumping, dumping, and wash trading your own crypto. It's very difficult to get on Coinbase. So we're kind of like in a holding pattern. But what we decided is that we think about a year ago, we decided to upgrade our platform to allow for NFT creation. And how we see NFT is like kind of in a back door to get into industries, because we believe that the real utility of NFTs is going to be in the marketing. And so we're about to roll out a couple new things. Literally, we've been architecting for about 6 months. So we upgraded the back end to allow for asset creation on the blockchain. And now we're building out a bunch of tools that don't exist out there. So one of the things that we're doing is we're creating a new thing called DeFi NFTs. So we're going to be creating NFTs that have a TUSC backing, so like an escrow. So, and what that allows for is if you wanted to create, for instance, a mortgage-backed security in TUSC and using NFTs, you can go through and literally create a series of NFTs, and then you can actually create escrow for each one of those NFTs in TUSC. The beauty of that is, unlike mortgage-backed securities, which is very difficult to determine the current value real time of what that mortgage portfolio is worth, you will be able to instantly ping and figure out how many NFTs are in a series, how many TUSC are backing each one of those NFTs, and real time see the market rate of what the value of the portfolio is, which is actually much better for investors. It's very efficient.
Can you imagine, can you imagine if they had what you're talking about right now, back in 2008, prior to subprime.
Well, it would make it very easy for people to see if they're garbage or not garbage.
Right,
But I
exactly.
mean,
I'm like, there would be no Big Short.
well, right, but think about it like this, right? If you're trying to figure out what's a mortgage-backed security portfolio worth, well, you got to do comps on every single house.
Yeah.
And that changes depending on if a house sells in the neighborhood, the comp has changed. Comps are only good for a couple days to a week. Typically, when you're doing like an appraisal, they're not very good very long. But if you have thousands and thousands of houses in a mortgage-backed security portfolio that you're investing in, you actually don't know what it's worth because of that problem. There's not a good time. Even Zillow is supposed to have the best data or some of the best data in real estate values in the country. And when they tried to go in and buy properties and flip them, they were losing their ass. They shut down that part of their business. So think about it. The people that have the best under the current system, the people that have the best data still lost money. Still lost. So we think that tool will be interesting. And so I'm coining the phrase DeFi NFTs.
Wow.
So that's one.
You
So
heard
that
it
we're
here.
built. And so the next thing we're doing, and you've seen this a lot with NFTs on like OpenSea, where if because of the royalties, if you then mint an NFT on OpenSea and then take it to another app on Ethereum, the original creator often would lose their royalty, right? Because there's not blockchain level royalties for NFTs on Ethereum right now. We're creating that so you do have that, so we're going to have blockchain level layer 1 royalties for our NFT creation. But we're going to do something even more interesting is we're going to have the ability to sell the royalties almost like a token and be able to trade the royalty rights to a series of NFTs like another commodity. So where a use case, so this is how this could be fun. So you know how the Beatles and Taylor Swift have their catalog, right? And then when these artists get broke, they sell the catalog rights.
Yep.
Right. And so we're saying is, well, think of an NFT. So let's say an artist launches an album of NFTs, each of which has a royalty. And well, maybe they want to sell those royalty rights. We're saying is you'll be able to sell those royalty rights as easy as selling another token. And you'll be able to trade the royalties to an NFT revenue stream. I don't know anybody who else has quite got that right now. I think Hyperledger's got something that's similar, but they don't have any apps built on that yet. So we're going to be rolling that out. We're literally been trying to figure out how to do this for a couple months on these elements. So we're going to build out a lot of tools. And so back to our who are potential customers. So because we have fixed fee transfers, right, and which is adjustable. So right now to move any amount of fee on or any amount of value on TUSC, currently I think it's set at 50 TUSC, which is less than a penny. And via committee vote, they can reduce those fees. So as the value of TUSC goes up, we can keep those fees low. But the idea is that you'll know exactly how much it costs to move anything around a TUSC at any given time. So it makes it easier for people to transact on. But we think so. If you look at it from a marketing perspective, I see NFTs as being coupons, verifiable coupons. And so we're talking to some big players about using TUSC for buyers points, NFTs for coupon purposes. And the cool thing about that is that they're a coupon that has a dual purpose. So you could use that coupon. You can make a QR code, an NFT, and send that as a coupon. So let's just say you're going to have a buyers club or something, or you want to go to events. You're now NFT for you can make a cool NFT that's the 2023 Buyers Club NFT. You can use that QR code to get into events. You could use that QR code for discounts. But the other thing about it is that once you have someone download that, you now can send spam to that wallet. Because but here's the thing, right? So if you think about it now, I'm kind of a marketing guy. So I think in terms of, and I'm not saying I like spam, but I'm saying is there's legitimate uses for this if you're in a certain industry. The gun industry, for instance, and I know our industry, is that every one of the main providers and vendors in that industry all have buyers clubs. And so, and they all have point systems for loyalty points and rewards points. This is a big part of the industry. And then on top of that, the industry has this patch culture, just like the Boy Scouts, law enforcement, military have patch culture. So we see digital patches as NFTs fulfilling multiple roles here. So there's an artistic piece to that, but then cost-wise. So if you want to send a text message spam or a text message to someone who's opted in. I understand we're talking about opt-in spam here, that people want, right? Because they want that buyer's club or they want that coupon. Right now, to send a text message right now, it costs between 2 and 5 cents, depending on how many characters you're using, right? No, there's an actual cost to text message marketing, and it's gotten expensive. People don't look at email anymore because there used to be, a cost to send email, but email marketing is becoming bad now. Like it's just not, there's no open rates. Now you got text message spam and the open rates are going down. The next market is NFTs. And now here's the interesting thing about that is that you can send NFTs for less than a penny, whereas a text message market might be 2 to 5 cents. So there's a huge cost benefit from a marketing standpoint using NFTs for couponing purposes. Again, I'm focused on people that are opting in for this because you have to give your account name to that for that to happen.
Right.
But that's how I see getting real world use for TUSC-based NFTs. And then as that grows and people get more comfortable with our brand, because we're still largely an unknown blockchain out there compared to many others, then I think people start seeing, wow, there's a real payment possibility here as well. It's because we have to build confidence in our brand. We have to build confidence in our blockchain. But we think that getting and having talked to the marketing departments of some billion-dollar companies, this seems like a much more interesting, easier sell to them and their executive boards than the payment side of it. And so that's what we're going to focus on right now. And that could be used for any industry, of course, but we're going to try to pioneer it in one industry and then see what happens.
Oh man, lots of exciting things, and you've got a full plate. It sounds like that you're working on over there. Hey, let me ask you on a different subject. You're very active on the crypto Twitter, and especially in this market. Whoops, what the heck was that? I don't know what that was. Sorry. Who are the people that you turn to for facts, not FUD, when you're looking at getting good, solid information? Because there's so many different accounts out there on the crypto Twitter. Who are resources that you could share that you find are valuable and offer some good insight?
Well, you actually mentioned one already. I think Hallie Lemon is great. Preston Byrne is great. Stephen Pally is great. I mean, these are Mango Farm Assets is run by a securities attorney. A lot of people don't know that, and I know him personally. I'm not gonna say who it is, but and so I have a few go-tos there. I like to talk to legal minds because they're less susceptible to BS.
Right.
And they understand some of the more of the legal implications. I think they tend to be more critical, and I respect that. As far as paid influencers, I don't actually follow.
No, I don't want to talk paid
influencers
influencers because I'm talking like folks like who are actually in the industry, in the community, that are building, that are front row. Like I'm up here in the nosebleed seats, bro. I got a better view of like Uranus aligning than what's going on in front row in the blockchain industry. So that's why it's great to have programs like this where we get to talk to folks like you and other thought leaders and industry leaders. So again, who are those folks that you would maybe that folks might not know about on crypto Twitter that like maybe they have, like they're not a big certified legacy blue check or whatever, but they are doing the real shit under the hood, doing the nuts and bolts.
So most of the reporters are stupid.
Yes, we know that.
Most
David
of the and I'm not going to pick on any one person, but I think those four that I listed are really good. It's really funny because I keep finding scammers in crypto, and I've worked really hard to expose some of them, and then I find people are like, yeah, I hate scammers, and I'm like, you were bribed by these people and promoting their events, and you're like, you don't even know they're scammers. So I think there's a lot of people that just are. There's a certain price point that every one of those influencers tend to be susceptible to, and a lot of these, you got to remember, a lot of the influencers, they really want the attention.
Sure.
Like I don't want the attention on me. I don't post personal stuff on social media. That's just not important to me. I begrudgingly do crypto interviews and stuff because it's just because I'm out there trying to get the word out. But some people really like attention, and I'm just not that kind of person.
You're not the guy.
Yeah, I'm not pretty either, but I don't have good.
You're pretty smart, and pretty savage.
But I would say, I think I like some of the crypto lawyers and people that I've
Jake Chervinsky. There's a crypto lawyer for you. You follow Jake Chervinsky?
I don't, but I will
Yeah,
look it up.
Jake Chervinsky. Seriously, that guy. He's right there with Haley. I respect that guy. He's done. Been following him for years on the crypto Twitter. He's a crypto lawyer. He's not your crypto lawyer, I believe, is what it says in his bio. We're getting
They
short on
never.
time, and I
But
want to kind of end on. Oh yeah, you go ahead and finish your thought there.
I got one more point though. I would
Yeah.
tell you after that I don't like now, and they're all the VCs that were crying for banker bailouts 2 weekends ago.
Yes.
And how
Peter
many?
Thiel.
And Peter, well, he got his money out. He didn't. He wasn't bitching about the money. He got all his money out. He was the first one to get his money out, so he didn't even suffer at all. Paul Graham, Jason Calacanis, Ackman, all those clowns begging, and they're like, "Oh, the depositors." I'm like, the depositors are your investments.
Yeah.
All those companies at SVP that are the depositors were the the companies you made investments in. So don't give me Cry Me a River that some average Joe working at Walmart has to pay to bail out your bullshit investments. And now I don't have sympathy. You got to let crummy banks fail. So I learned who a lot of my enemies are, and there was not only enemies, but I will say there was a certain influencer who's a Bitcoin maximalist that was also out there supporting. It was interesting which crypto and Bitcoin influencers, and especially the maxis, that were pushing for banker bailouts. And so I learned who I don't like a lot in the last 2 weeks in crypto.
No, fair enough. I mean, I think that's how you separate the wheat from the chaff, and you find out, where folks lie and where they're at. So it's unfortunate that, these situations happen, but I think you're right on the spot. It was a lot of VCs looking to get their money and get bailed out, and not very cool. And I agree, banks should be allowed to fail. We're getting short here on time. I want to do something a little bit fun, a little bit different, and on a light note. We're going to play a little game with Rob McNealy. Either or. Our producer Nick has no idea what's going on. He's like, I'm not ready for this. It's okay. It's really fun. It's really simple. I give you a choice, and you tell me which one you like. Either or, no wrong answer. Pretty simple. You ready?
Okay.
All right, here we go. Sam Jackson or Vin Diesel?
Vin Diesel.
Vin Diesel. Best Batman? Michael Keaton, George Clooney, Christian Bale, or the dude from Twilight?
I've never watched any of the Batman movies ever.
Okay, well, now we know how to pray for Rob.
I would say Keaton.
Oh, he's going old school. Okay. If you could bring back one comedian, who would it be? Chris Farley, John Candy, or Robin Williams?
Candy.
Yeah, I would. Candy or Williams would be my right there. Either or with Rob McNealy as we continue beyond the block and wrapping it up here. If you had to choose having your blood sucked out by a vampire or having your brains eaten by a zombie, what would you go with?
Vampire.
It's the vampire. I kind of want to see that new Nicolas Cage movie, by the way. What's it? He's a vampire.
Renfield.
Yes, I do want to see that. It looks kind of fun. Gandalf or Dumbledore?
Gandalf.
And finally, either or, Harry Potter or Luke Skywalker?
I'd rather slut my throat.
Wow. You could have got. I was expecting maybe Chewbacca. No.
Okay.
Chewbacca?
So understand. I saw the original Star Wars in the movie theater.
Yeah, we're probably about the same age.
Yeah, I'm old enough to do. So I would probably have to pick, Luke Skywalker, but he turned into such a fruity lefty as an actor, and I have a hard time differentiating. And so I don't like him, especially in and Star Wars went woke and they killed it. And he was in that the last movie I saw where he was in there and he's all woke. And I don't know. Mark Hamill is just not my thing anymore.
I love fruity leftist. I love
fruity
that.
leftist. But Harry Potter, he's all right. But I probably have to say Mark Hamill before he was woke. I would rather have gone Harrison Ford. Ford.
You know what? We should have gone Harrison Ford. You know what? I'll tell my mom next time she comes up with the list to give us a better option.
ChatGPT could have done better than that.
Man, I thank you so much, Mr. Rob McNealy, co-founder, TUSC, the network there helping to bring change and innovation and equality, I would believe is a fair word to use as well, around the world and across the blockchain. Yeah, payments. I love that, man. Any parting thoughts before we wrap things up? Where folks give you all the info where folks can find you, follow you, and learn more about TUSC.
TUSC, TUSC.network, TUSC.network. That's TUSC.network. Me, I'm just at Rob McNealy everywhere, so it's easy to find. And apparently on Chat GPT as well. So just at Rob McNealy. Final words: don't get caught up in politics of crypto and these weird personalities and Bitcoin maximalists. My focus on getting people using crypto for its intended purpose. And I don't care if it's TUSC, I don't care if it's Bitcoin, I don't care if it's even XRP, honestly. Just start using crypto for its intended purpose for buying and selling goods and services, because that's the only way that we free ourselves is mass adoption, not mass investments. There's a big difference between investors.
Oh, dude, tweet that. Mass adoption, not mass investments, man. Hashtag that, brother. That's
okay, I will.
That's what's up. Hey, before we go, producer Nick, can we roll the what the fuck video of the week? I think we've got the what the fuck video of the week that left a lot of folks scratching. Rob, let's get your comments on this before we wrap it up. Here comes executive producer Nick Diamond with the what the fuck video of the week.
Breaking out. You like that?
We do. We were early Bitcoin fans at $600 an ounce is where we first bought it, recommended it at $2,000 an ounce, sold it at $58,000 an ounce, all documented. We're now very interested again. We haven't acted again, but I'll tell you, Bitcoin has been one of the most reliable risk-on indicators as a buy signal for equities that we've seen. We've not had a market decline when Bitcoin is going higher. I think also Bitcoin is flashing a buy signal for stocks.
Hey Rob, where do you buy ounces of Bitcoin?
I only buy it by the gram, not by the ounce.
yeah, you're like me, man. I can't afford to buy ounces, dude.
Dude,
oh,
that's so cringe.
But
the thing is, what's cringe about that is he was so confident.
Yeah.
That's the cringe. He's just
I can see if you misspoke. Like once, like I make a mistake. I said something the other week, like, oh, whatever, okay. But he said it 3 freaking times, like to drive home the point.
Yeah, and so that's the problem. It's not that people are wrong. It's that when they're so confident and don't realize they're wrong. That's the dangerous decision makers. And I don't know, there's a quadrant about not, being dumb, but not knowing you're being dumb, Dunning-Kruger, that kind of thing. Yeah, that was like just really bad because you can tell he doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. But he's confident, and other people like confidence. So I don't know. Yeah, that's totally cringe, dude.
Yeah. All right. On that note, we will wrap it up and bid you adieu. Continued success and be smart out there, Mr. McNealy. I know you are. I know you're a very astute, savage Jedi here on the blockchain. So again, I thank you for making the time, and we will see you out there on the crypto Twitter on the Bird app as well.
Thank you so much, man. I appreciate the time. I really do.
All right. Thank you so much. And again, thank you to executive producer Nick Diamond, the entire Bitcoin Live family of shows. 3D Perspective, Douglas, man, that guy did a heck of a show today talking about living on Bitcoin and wallets. And don't forget, Gingerly back next week with Purple Suede 22 and Style Pigeon. And of course, our good friend Paul McNeil, Bitcoin is Freedom, and Bitcoin and Politics. I forget which one it is, but it's on Thursday. So with that being said, thank you so much. Be smart, be safe, stack sats, and hodl. Nick, roll that video, baby, and we're out of here.
One parting thought: the best financial advice I can give you is whatever you do, do not listen to Matty Sack.